Well, welcome everyone to another episode of Hilton True Wealth, where we teach people how the wealthy invest better and more efficiently. And today we have a special guest with us today. I have Dr. Axel Myerhofer with us. He's the host of the Ideal Investor Show. He's an Air Force veteran. He's also turned a real estate investor using strategies like the 1031 exchange, turnkey investing, and more. Axel now owns multiple properties in different countries and states. He currently serves his clients as a value asset expert, reps for the Age of Abundance, lives in sunny Spain with his wife, Heidi. Axel, welcome to the podcast today.
Yeah, hi, Mark. Thanks for having me. And yeah, we are in Spain part of the time and San Diego, where our other residence is the other part of the time.
Where in Spain?
A little bit north of Alicante at a place called the Costa Blanca.
Oh, wow, that sounds beautiful.
Yeah, it is very pretty. It's kind of funny because if you see pictures about San Diego at the beach, and I were to show you pictures about our place here at the Costa Blanca, you would say it's the same place.
It's exactly the same. So you did that on purpose, right?
Yeah, my wife said, I don't mind I wanted to go to Europe because my family, especially my mom, is getting up there in age. And even though I'm very grateful that she's doing so well, but you never know how much longer that's going to be the case. So we wanted to have a place here that allows us to stay if we wanted to, but also to be relatively quickly close to her, invite her over and stuff like that. And I spoke to my wife about it a few years ago, and she said, yeah, that's all good as long as it's like here.
That's
So we had
perfect.
to
Yeah, I've been
find
to
it.
Spain a few times. Everywhere is beautiful in Spain, that's for sure. And also San Diego, I remember years ago going there for several times in the year, and every day was perfectly sunny, perfect weather. And one day I opened up the curtains in my hotel room, and it was gray and cloudy and kind of rainy. And I asked the people there, I said, what did you do to the weather here? Because it's so nice there in San Diego. But anyway, welcome to the show. Give us a little bit idea of your background.
Yeah, so you mentioned a little piece of it already. I was originally born in Germany. I mentioned my mom still living in Germany when she's not visiting us in Spain. And so I joined the Air Force after I graduated from kind of like an associate degree program level. Started flying, as you can see in the background, the plane there. And then I got an opportunity to apply for an exchange position with the US Air Force that brought me to the United States and to flying for the US Air Force. And then as that came to an end, I also reached a point where at a certain age, your body is just not made for jet flying anymore, at least not fighter jets. And so I kind of let it drop that I'm going to be retiring from the Air Force. And several companies said, oh, would you come to us? Would you work? And I said, well, I would love to, but I need a green card. And so ultimately a company in California said, yeah, we're going to do that. We can create a case where nobody will be even close to qualifying to what you bring with your exchange jobs and test flying experience and blah, blah, blah. So I got into a software company in the Santa Barbara area. And then after about 4 or 5 years working there, and then at night getting a graduate degree, I started my first own business in 2005. And as I was building that business, I realized, if you're not in the military and you're not an employee, there isn't really anything happening for retirement unless you do something for yourself. And so I started researching and basically ended up looking into real estate. And as I said before we started recording, initially, I would say probably almost everybody, I looked around where I was living if there's any way to invest in real estate. Now, I had studied quite a few at the time. You bought DVD programs and stuff like that. Internet was still in its early stages. So I'd studied a bunch, and everybody had educated me on how the numbers need to look like. And so I plugged in the numbers in an Excel spreadsheet in my area, and it never worked. And so that's where I had to start looking for something else. And that's basically what we're doing at Idea Wealth Grower now. I developed a model and we're still applying it and it's still working.
Wow, that's great. And I know it sounds like you have some expertise and you're quite into and have some expertise in the future and looking forward to new technologies and everything. Talk a little bit about your experience in that space. It happens to kind of some of the things you do kind of happen to overlap with the areas that we're working on, kind of on the future of technology and everything. So give us some background there.
Well, one of the things I mentioned from my aviation time, I didn't just learn and then use to fly for the military, but I got an opportunity to join a test team where you literally test the equipment that ultimately gets integrated into the fighter jet. And that triggered something I didn't know that I had, that is basically an interest in engineering and technical solutions. And I've always been fascinated. I think part of it was even that my parents were totally into watching, like the Saturn V launches to land on the moon and stuff in the 60s. I mean, I was literally a little toddler at the time, but I guess, having that and being so fascinated, and then my job in the Air Force triggered this interest in technology and engineering. And when I started realizing, okay, we're not just talking about improvements in software anymore. We're now in this transition where the software and what we call AI, artificial intelligence, and all that good stuff is becoming embodied. It basically becomes embodied intelligence, right? And some people may have seen these kind of funny YouTube videos about these little dogs that can run around in dangerous situations. Well, my prediction is in the next 3 to 5 years, we will see real applications in humanoid robots. And that interest started me to ask, how will people in the age of abundance, in the age of artificial intelligence, live and work? And especially for our investing community, what will be potentially the impact for investors? And how will it manifest? And I think the biggest summary term is productivity, right? Like and you can, or anybody listening to us or watching us, just ask yourself for a moment. Imagine there were a person or something that looks very much like a person that would cut your lawn perfectly, cut your hedges perfectly, pick out all the little weeds perfectly, take the leaves out of your gutters perfectly, clean the floors in your house and the toilets and the windows perfectly. Maybe you download a little extra and it knows how to make Michelin meals at night for you. On and on and on. And that whole thing 24/7. And now you transfer that to the business. And in our business, where we help people, and I have my portfolio as well, invest in residential real estate, mainly single family homes. And I'm a big fan, and I know you do this for your clients too, to say, okay, consider where can you build a cluster? Don't buy one thing here and one thing here and one thing here, and it's all over the place, but building clusters, geographically co-located clusters. Well, in my case, I have a cluster in Ohio that has 5 houses, right? If I imagine right now I'm paying somebody 10% of my rental income to manage the property. But every time something breaks, they call a plumber or an electrician or something like that. And guess what? I pay $250. Well, if I had, just even for myself or for a group of fellow investors, one of those embodied intelligence guys, my properties would be beautiful. They would have the most modern technology, the most amazing outside, like curb appeal. I could offer the tenants like free cleaning 3 times a week, like stuff like that. If you think it through, there are so many things. And then the next thing you start asking yourself, okay, well, a humanoid robot could do things. What else would change in the house?
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And so you're getting to kind of more and more of a smart home solution, not just because it will be more attractive to the tenants, it will increase the value of the asset, but it's also something that you will need anyway if you want to differentiate yourself a little bit from everybody else.
I like what you're saying too about like having a development and having those, humanoid robots there to just do all the maintenance, both inside and out. If you got a particular, and I know that we're starting to have different technologies to monitor inside the homes, to be able to do different things to take care of the AC, all of those type of things. And that would just be added to that. What do you say to people? Because the biggest thing that I see with all the new technology, when rubber meets the road, a lot of people are afraid of it. For instance, like, and we've been doing some investing in robotics and so forth, but a lot of people are afraid of it because they, seen the Terminator. They think that, oh, well, the robots are going to turn on everyone, and they see all this stuff that happens in Hollywood. And by the way, we do a lot of movies in Hollywood. We produced a lot of them and everything, and we understand that it's not real. But still, there's in back of people's mind, they're like, well, what is this AI? What is this robotics technology? Is there a possibility that it's going to hurt us instead of helping us?
Well, that's, I think, in a sense, a technological question kind of wrapped into a philosophical question a little bit. To me, if I wanted to do it a little bit in a cheeky, maybe somewhat humorous way, if it is true that the technology is at the precipice of becoming self-learning, right? And when you really say, and there are talks, and you know this, and I'm sure, is right now we call it artificial intelligence. The next level that a lot of companies are after is called artificial general intelligence. And then the next level after that is artificial superintelligence. And these next levels, general and super intelligence, the differentiator is we are not basically giving the AI a model and some videos or some other instructions to learn from, but we're basically giving it the freedom to learn on its own, right? So when you say, okay, I give you one example that is available in the United States right now. In a Tesla car with what they call full self-driving supervised, where you're sitting behind the steering wheel and you click a button on the screen and it's driving you. The system that is sitting inside driving you is not doing calculations like a software. It has been fed data about how does the world look like and how do good drivers work and drive through that world.
Right.
And so the system,
how do they see it? Right. Through the windshield. Right. Yes.
Well, they have 8 cameras around the car, so they have a 360-degree view of that world. But some people think, okay, the software is constantly looking or asking itself, here is the situation I see, what do I need to do? But that's not the case. It's basically an intelligence that is deciding what is the environment showing me, how fast am I going, what are the rules that this environment requires, like street signs and speed signs and all of that, and is basically planning for a certain amount of road ahead of you. That is an intelligent way. It's similar to what you and I do when we drive a car. So the same thing,
but faster,
well, way faster. And that makes it also way more safe. Now, the thing is, why am I using this example is when you look at what this general intelligence would say is, in a way, the car is at a position and is moving at a certain speed in a certain direction. The AI system basically has to predict and reason what is coming and can I go the same speed? Do I need to slow down? Do I need to change direction? All of those kind of things. So you presented a problem and it constantly creates a new solution, which allows you to continue to drive.
It's learning.
It's learning, right?
Yes.
Ultimately, when you take it one step further to a robot, and this is very, very similar. Everybody who's ever driven a car will immediately relate. That's why I use this example. if you took another robot that comes fresh out of the factory and you put it in the car and it downloaded what the other one learned, you can put the car anywhere and it can start driving. Will it be as safe and as familiar with it like somebody who drives that area all the time? No. But you don't have to download a special program if you're going from wherever you are right now to New York or to San Diego or to any other location. You won't drive as well as at home, but you will still be able to drive. And that's this kind of learning capability, what artificial general intelligence means. And if I come back all the way to your question, I guess this fear that you mentioned philosophically would only really realize itself if the future AI would come to the conclusion that it would be better off without humans. So our task as humans is basically to say, we need to be interesting enough for the AI to say, no, we want to keep these weird creatures around, even if they're a little weird.
That's interesting. I love that. And I've kind of heard that point before. That the other thing too, like on the area of AI, and I remember I spent a weekend at a real kind of in-depth AI conference, and a woman got up and she was very frightened, and I mean you could visibly see it on her face because she was, we were 2 days into it, and she was, I mean, visibly shaking from all the things that we had learned. And the individual that was up there was kind of a semi-expert at AI. He wasn't the one building all of it, but he had been involved in a couple companies and everything. And she was like, well, I'm afraid that the AI will get too much information on me and know too much about me. And then that individual looked at her and he said, and you don't think that all of that information out about you is already out there? That there's this fear of that AI, well, it's going to go beyond what, well, we've already been surveilled. All of these companies are already following us online. They know so many things about us. Is AI going to be able to know, but more personally, their AI is going to be able to know more personal things about you and what your habits are and what you tend to do in certain situations, then maybe can possibly mimic that and help with that. But knowing more personal information about you, like, most of that information is already out there, in the digital world anyway.
Yeah, if I may make a comment about that, Mark, I think just in general, and interestingly enough, I've always been interested in history. And I would say in general, this has always been true, even for thousands of years, that humans had a choice. You could either choose to look at things from an adversary perspective, identifying who are my friends and who are my enemies, and then basically protect your friends and make sure that you can win against the enemies. This kind of adversarial approach and form of way of living, I mean, to some extent, and I don't want to become political, but if you look at the fact that we're spending $1 trillion a year on defense, gives a clear indication that we in the United States have a tendency to pick that adversarial approach.
Sure.
There is an alternative that would be the cooperative or collaborative approach. And for example, right, we can declare China an enemy of the United States. If we go just for a moment and say, okay, when we look at what have we been doing since the year 1900, with our military, with our country, with our declaration of who is a friend and who is an enemy, and what has China done? What we would, if we were to do a ledger, we could list all the years and all the wars that we have been involved in. Sometimes we triggered them, sometimes we were triggered by someone else, but there's almost no decade where we haven't been involved in a war, which totally feeds into this idea of we have friends and we have enemies. And we basically are almost constantly in some kind of fighting posture. At the same time, China has been sitting there, first with Mao and then with Deng Xiaoping and now with their most recent leaders. they had no wars. They had not attacked anybody. They have not come to the help of anybody. All we see, and I know we're far away and we only see the news about it, but fundamentally they have been building their country and their relationships. If I had to describe the difference, is they have chosen the collaborative approach. And if you bring this back to AI, when I look at my situation, could I still write my newsletter articles as I did before? The answer is totally yes. Are they better in quality, faster to produce, more in-depth, better researched if I do it together with AI in a collaborative approach? 100% yes.
Yes,
Right?
absolutely.
So I
Such a
mentioned,
key point,
it's,
collaboration, right?
yeah. If
And
I take my house, whether it's the one in San Diego or in Spain or any of the ones I own as investment, will they be more valuable, much better and more desirable if basically a human equivalent type of individual is taking care of everything for basically a one-time fee that I pay for this thing, and then for the next 5 years it's going to do everything to the standard of the best plumber, the best electrician, and on and on. And so when people say I'm afraid, I feel oftentimes they have a hard time identifying what are they really afraid of. And in my opinion, one of the core things is when you go to Maslow's pyramid of needs, at the very top, it says self-fulfillment. And we have always been told, for those who are interested, that self-fulfillment is a great thing. I believe more and more now that we get more and more the opportunity that it could become reality, that quite a few people are afraid of it. So I give you one last thing before we maybe go to a different topic. If you imagine how much more productivity you get when you have a thing that costs, let's say, $30,000, $40,000, being the humanoid robot, and it works basically 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 a year. Right? Costs less than employing one person and does 4 or 5 times as much work in just sheer hours and so forth. I'm not even assuming or saying that the work is better. Let's just say the work is as good. Now, what does that mean? It basically means we have a massive increase in productivity. And to me, when some people like Elon Musk say, okay, I think we will get to something like universal high income, I believe one way to get there is to say, well, let's tax that increase in productivity and give it to the public, to the humans like you and me. So now we don't have to go to work necessarily anymore. And we get to the very top of that Maslow's pyramid where we can do self-fulfillment, where I can finally say at my age, I've always wanted to learn how to play a keyboard, and I will never make a penny out of it because I will probably suck at it real bad, but I want to learn it. And I never had the time, and I didn't have access to somebody. Well, if you are a great piano player and teacher, but you don't have to worry about money, and I don't have to worry about money anymore, partially because I have my investment properties, but also because I get at least a little bit of UBI or UHI income from the government, I can go to you and say, hey, Mark, teach me how to play the keyboard. Just be aware I probably suck at it real bad. And we can do that, right? So that's what I'm saying about people that look at the fear side. I think they are triggered by the choice of, is it my enemy or is it my friend? Rather than, can it be something that can co-live with us, collaborate with us, open up opportunities, make the government, make the country more successful because it becomes more productive. And keep in mind, I would say right now, certain Asian countries, including China and the United States, are the 2 top countries who will actually achieve the capabilities of these robots. So we will have such a huge advantage, not just in selling them, but for ourselves as individuals to have access to them and have a life with a level of pleasure. It's almost like the kings that had their castles and their all the people that basically came to their beck and call and their beautiful gardens and stuff like that. We could get there at an individual level. So I rather have that view than being afraid of it.
Well, absolutely. And great, incredible perspectives there. It's funny how that kind of coincides too with me being a certified high performance coach too, about, productivity and helping in those areas and helping and be collaborative with you. We have sources of that that we can do now. We're just talking about with AI and robotics and all of that, making those collaborations even more productive in a sense. So that's great perspective. So let's switch gears and let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you're doing, because I know that you mentioned that you're kind of maybe putting some offerings together to be able to kind of put some of your real estate offerings together for folks to be able to invest. So touch on that a little bit before we wrap up here.
Yeah, it kind of is very well connected. So thank you, Mark, for kind of building that bridge. That I don't know if it was intentional, but it's very, very perfect. And that is, when you think about what I mentioned earlier, that in my little portfolio of 5 properties in that Ohio region between Dayton and Cincinnati, would I buy a $30,000-$40,000 robot and let it take care of all my properties? Yeah, probably. But I know it would send me, after a week, it would send me a message and say, Axel, I'm bored out of my skull. What else can I do? Everything is already perfect, right? So with that in mind, I thought about it and say, okay, well, I have learned in the last 15 years how to build this portfolio for myself, but also help other people to build their portfolio. Why not make an offer where I basically keep building portfolios in desirable areas where my own properties are? Because if, like, let's say somebody that you sent to me says, okay, I'm willing to invest $1 million, for example, to build a portfolio. So that means the person can either buy 5 houses or 10 to 15 houses, depending whether they want financing or not. You add my 5 houses, we're already at 20. So that means our robot is not going to be bored for the first 2 weeks. If we find a second client, we have another week covered. With the third client in that area, we have one robot completely occupied, keeping all our places in pristine condition, right? So, and we all benefit. We will have the best houses in all the best neighborhoods, and we can maybe even decide to say, now that we have a critical mass, we might want to find a piece of land and develop a new neighborhood. It doesn't have to be in Ohio, can be anywhere. And we know from day one, we're going to get one of the robots to look after everything and one to provide security for everybody who lives there.
And that's how
Right.
they
So
can help with real estate possibly in the future.
Yeah, there is a combination there where it's one thing to be fascinated by the productivity gain and by the technology. But then for me, it's also important to say, what can we do with it that benefits? It benefits me as helping you to build that portfolio. It benefits the investor because they get a better portfolio than I could even offer 3 years ago, or anybody could offer. And by the way, and this is what I think we all want, it also benefits the tenant because they don't have to wait for anything. They don't have to look after the garden. They don't have to be worried that when something breaks, that it's going to be expensive. Even if they break something, we might become generous and say, don't worry, if the robot has an hour, comes by and fixes it for you, even though we normally would charge you. Right? All those kind of things, it just makes win-win-win for everybody involved. I'm not saying this is tomorrow, right? But the first thing that you typically need, and why I created this offer, is you need to first start building the portfolio. And then let's say that takes a year until you really have everything in place. Well, in a year, if you look at how fast AI is growing and the robots get better, in a year, they will be so much better. We won't be very far away from getting one anymore.
Sure. And we're in a digital world now. There's a lot of efficiencies that can come into managing
Totally.
different properties and investment portfolios, real estate investment portfolios, with all just the new breakthroughs in AI and things of that nature too, and just new technologies coming that way. And that's phenomenal. And I know that you have a lot of expertise in that area. And so if folks want to learn and maybe collaborate with you, and obviously you're a very bright guy, know a lot about a lot of things. If they would like to collaborate with you, learn more about what you do and how you do it, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, I'm going to say it a little bit cheekily. I would say the first best way is they get in touch with you and you send them my way. But the second best way is you go to idealwealthgrower.com, to our website, and at the top right-hand corner, there's a little button that says Discovery Call. You get directly on my calendar and we have a conversation. You tell me what you need and I try to support you and help you. And maybe one little thing to what you just said, Mark. The big differentiator for anybody listening or watching us is that for me and for our clients, we want to maintain as much control of the assets we own as possible. I know that there are many, many other real estate instruments out there, but most of them don't really get you control for either your family office or for your own trust or whatever structure you have, where you can say that title of that asset is in our company's or our trust's name and not some fund or some bank or something like that.
Absolutely. That brings us to the end of today's episode of Hilton True Wealth. If you want to learn more about topics relating to building your wealth, tax planning, cutting edge tech, and family office services, we're here to help. Be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts so you'll never miss an episode, and give us a like or a review. And if you're curious to learn more about your wealth, tune in every Tuesday for new insights and special guests. If you found value in what you heard today, share it with someone who might benefit too. For more insights, resources, and to get a free copy of our book, Hilton Wealth, How to Invest Like an American Dynasty, visit us at hiltonwealth.com. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep building your true wealth.